Our next speaker is Dr. Delbert Gatlin, who is a Regents professor in the Texas A&M University Department of Ecology and Conservation Biology and is a member of the Intercollegiate Faculty of Nutrition. His research and teaching interests encompass various aspects of aquaculture, including different aspects of nutrition and feeding of fish. Del.
Okay. Thanks for the introduction, Rick. It's my pleasure to be able to speak to you today. I've really enjoyed participating in the meeting this week, and I'm going to give you my perspective on moving the needle. I'm going to set as the context of my presentation this slide that many of you have, I'm sure, seen from the Food and Agriculture Organization, which shows the tremendous increase in seafood production related to aquaculture, shown here in the reddish hues for inland and marine aquaculture. And we've seen over the past 30 years, there's been a tremendous improvement or increase in that seafood production from aquaculture due to the static capture fisheries that are shown in blue. If we look a little more closely, we see that, of course, we know aquaculture is very diverse. We have a number of different species produced in different environments. This slide is highlighting the fact that we've got a number of different species, both crustaceans and finfish, produced in inland and marine waters that are fed species, ones that we're very interested in from a nutritional standpoint and trying to support their growth. This chart does show in green and in that light blue color algae and mollusks that are not fed species. We're not so worried about them because they can acquire their nutrients from the water. But the fed species are certainly ones that we're concerned about. And this is showing the estimated growth of aquafeeds production in the coming years it actually goes back there to 2000. But we see for the total fed species, which is the blue line, from 2015 up to 2021, we see the quantities of fed species going from 42 to 54 million metric tons. We see the feeds required to support the production of those animals going from 47 to 62 million metric tons. And if you look at the projections, that's actually showing increases over 4% per year for not only the fed species, but the feed that's required to support their growth. And if we look at the top part of the slide, the projections going out to 2030 are showing over a 40% increase in the amount of production that's going to be coming from aquaculture and the amount of feed that's going to be needed to support that. In fact, in some cases, you see estimates now that from 50 million metric tons of feed currently produced, there's going to need to be a doubling of that by 2050. So we do have our work cut out for us to help support the continued growth of aquaculture. This slide here just shows some of the more prominent cultured species that are our fed species that do require this nutritious feed to support their efficient growth. And of course, we have some of these species like down on the bottom, the Chinese carps that constitute a very large part of production and are fed large quantities of feed. We have less dependence on the marine resources with those species. As we go around the circle there, again, we see tilapia, shrimp, catfishes, some of the marine species, including the sea bass, sea bream, the salmon, and then some of the other crustacean species. Again, these are really important in terms of requiring nutritionally complete diets to support their production. Some, again, are more dependent than others on marine resources. But speaking of which, I want to highlight the fact that all of these species that were shown on the other slide are considered to be species that have relatively high protein requirements, especially compared to swine and poultry. Fish meal, as noted here, is an important ingredient that's we've relied on heavily in prepared feed formulations over the years. It does have a number of very favorable attributes, as we've noted here, including the protein and lack of anti-nutritional factors and so forth. But as our nutritionists like to say, the fish need nutrients, not ingredients. And so we're, of course, working hard to reduce our dependence on fish meal and fish oil in the diets of aquatic species. This is a good example of some of the progress that's been made with these species that do traditionally use a lot of fish meal and fish oil, including the salmon, trout, sea bass, sea bream, and even the carps down below. We see there's been a rather dramatic reduction in fish meal inclusion in these diets over the years. And again, you can look at the numbers there showing the reduction. And in many of these species, we see a substantial reduction in the amount of fish meal included in the diets. Of course, a lot of that relates to the price that you see at the bottom of the slide, where there's been a tremendous increase in the price of fish meal. So again, we're hoping to continue to move the needle and continue to reduce fish meal and fish oil in the diets of aquatic species. This is a similar slide to what was presented earlier in the week, showing the dramatic improvement in reducing marine resources in Atlantic salmon diets. And you see on the left-hand side of the slide the prominent role that fish meal and fish oil played in the diets back in the 1990s, and we see that rather consistent decline in those marine resources up till 2020. So again, there's been good progress made there. I compliment the feed manufacturers, the ingredient suppliers, and the aquaculturists in doing this, and I see that there's still opportunities for us to continue to make progress in this regard. And as I've already mentioned, no fish really or shrimp needs fish meal. They need nutrients in the proper quantities of these nutrients. And thus, there's been a lot of work done in recent years in developing feedstuffs, many of which were presented this week, highlighting some of the possible alternatives to fish meal. And I've listed a number of these here. Again, we had several representatives presenting their products, a lot of good opportunities for using these products. I want to mention this article that was just recently published, where we did a SWOT analysis on marine, grain, terrestrial, animal, and novel protein ingredients. I make reference to this and would like for you to take the opportunity to look at it in the near future. We do a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis of these ingredients, somewhat similar to what we did some 14 or 17 years ago with the sustainable plant aqua feeds. With this review article, myself and Dr. Barrows were associated with the plant products and aqua feeds group when this was published. It's been a very important roadmap for developing plant feedstuffs that can be used in aquaculture. And so producing value-added ingredients, we know now, we've heard some of the ingredient suppliers this week talk about their products in different ways of manipulating and altering their composition, their value in fish feeds. We do know that, again, with most of these feedstuffs, economics is going to be a very important component, including the cost per unit of protein, and the nutritional characteristics have to be good for these products to be able to enter the feed formulations. I did want to highlight another database. Of course, we know there's the International Aquaculture Feed Formulators database. This is another ingredient database just constantly being updated by the National Animal Nutrition Program. And you can see the site there at the bottom. This is a really good, robust data set for ingredients. And for those of you that do formulation and are interested in these feedstuffs, this would be a good source to look at. And I'm going to summarize and conclude here, indicating that, again, there are traditional as well as novel protein feedstuffs that have become integral components of aqua feeds to help reduce our dependence on fish meal and fish oil. Again, plant protein feedstuffs, including some of the newer varieties, are very important in that regard. Microbial proteins, including the algae, bacteria, and yeast, generally have been included at lower levels, but there's opportunities for expansion. The rendered animal products, traditional and novel products, and again, the nutritional characteristics of these ingredients are they have to be good to allow higher inclusion levels in diet formulations. And again, cost per unit protein is key. And I'd say that we do have our work cut out for us, but again, I think there's evidence showing that we're making progress, and we will continue to make progress in supporting the growth of aquaculture in the coming decades. Thanks.